I remember the day the whispers began, the day I caught my own reflection and wondered if maybe I was already halfway gone. The sky was a dull gray that morning, the kind that makes even a heartbeat sound heavy. My name is Margaret Lewis, and for 72 years I have lived an ordinary life in a quiet house on Cedar Lane. Or at least, I thought I did. For most of my life, my family was my pride. My husband, Robert, a strong man with gentle hands, passed away 10 years ago, leaving me with our 2 children, Thomas and Evelyn. I thought they were my legacy, my joy. But legacy can turn to greed quicker than milk turns sour. It all began after I fell down the staircase one winter night. A stupid accident, really. My bones were brittle, my steps slow. I woke up in the hospital with tubes running through me and my children hovering over the bed like vultures wrapped in worry. Evelyn's hand trembled as she held mine, whispering, "Mom, you scared us." Thomas just stared at the monitor, silent, calculating. The doctors said I was lucky to be alive, but I noticed the way my children exchanged glances when they thought I wasn't looking. That accident, I later realized, was more than just a fall. It was the start of my disappearance. After I came home, things felt different. My house didn't smell like home anymore. Evelyn insisted she move in to take care of me. At first, it felt sweet. She cooked, she cleaned, she handled my mail. I trusted her, until one morning I found letters missing from my drawer bank statements, insurance updates, my late husband's pension slips. When I asked her about it, she smiled. "I filed them, Mom. You don't need to stress." But my heart told me something wasn't right. My hands shook every time I looked at her, and yet I couldn't confront her properly. I loved my children too much to believe they could ever hurt me. Weeks later, Thomas began visiting more often, bringing lawyers and advisors. They said I should sign a few documents to simplify my estate in case my health worsened. I refused, of course. I might have been old, but I wasn't senile. Thomas's smile hardened that day like a mask cracking. "We're just trying to help you, Mom," he said, but his tone felt like a warning. I should have called someone, anyone. But mothers always hope their children mean well. Then came the night of the storm. The wind howled like an omen, shaking the old windows until the glass screamed. Evelyn brought me tea, but it tasted bitter, metallic. I only drank a few sips before my stomach turned. I remember her watching me closely, her face pale, her eyes dark with something I didn't recognize anymore. The next thing I knew, I woke up in darkness. My body was heavy, my head pounding. The air was damp and cold. I tried to move, but my limbs refused. There was a faint smell of earth around me, and then light, blinding, white light. I was in a hospital room again, but not the same one. A nurse leaned over me, whispering softly, "You're safe now, Mrs. Lewis. You've been through quite an ordeal." I didn't understand. Days later, when I regained full consciousness, I overheard 2 nurses whispering in the hallway. Her family's arrangements were odd, one said. "Did you see the file? They declared her dead last month." Dead. My heart stopped. My family had already buried me in their minds, at least. I demanded to see the file. The nurse looked startled, but she brought it anyway. My name, my date of birth. Even my supposed time of death were there in black ink. Cause heart failure, next of kin, Thomas Lewis and Evelyn Foster. They had even collected my life insurance payout 2 weeks earlier. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear the papers apart. But my voice trembled, my body weak. The betrayal crushed me more than any illness ever could. How could they? My own children, blood of my blood. I didn't tell the nurses what I knew. I pretended confusion. If my family thought I was dead, I wanted it to stay that way for now. I needed to understand why. Over the next few days, I pieced together fragments. Apparently, a body had been found in a burned-out car near a lake outside town, a woman of similar build, roughly my age. My family identified her as me. They arranged a quiet funeral, told the neighbors I died peacefully in my sleep, and collected every penny of my insurance. But who was that poor woman? And why did they choose her to be me? When I was finally discharged, I refused to go back home. I told the hospital I had no family left. A kind nurse, Clara, helped me find a small rental under a false name, Mary Holloway. I cut my hair, dyed it gray-white, and disappeared from Cedar Lane. From my tiny apartment window, I could see the church steeple that overlooked my own grave. My children had placed a headstone there, with my name carved deep into marble. I went there once, just to see it. Standing before that grave, I felt hollow. There it was, my death, carved and sold like a story they'd written for their own gain. But I wasn't done yet. I spent months quietly gathering information, bank records, copies of insurance documents, even old letters. Every clue whispered the same thing. Thomas and Evelyn had planned it. They had forged medical reports, bribed an official, even staged my identification through dental records. It was so well executed that no one had doubted them. Still, I couldn't go to the police, not yet. I needed proof strong enough to expose them, because in this town, money buys silence. Then, one evening, as I was sorting through old files, I noticed something odd. A deposit large, sudden into Thomas's account just 3 days before my death. The sender's name chilled me, Lydia Marrow. Lydia Marrow was a name I hadn't heard in years. She was my late husband's assistant, the woman I'd once suspected of having an affair with him. She'd vanished after Robert's death. Why was she sending my son money now? That night I couldn't sleep. My thoughts twisted like shadows on the wall. Maybe the betrayal ran deeper than I'd imagined. Maybe this wasn't just about greed, it was about secrets buried long before my fall down the stairs. And as I lay awake, listening to the ticking of the clock, I realized something horrifying. If my family could fake my death once, they could make it real next time. Silence in that cramped apartment felt like a living thing breathing beside me, whispering my name in the dark. I had lived 72 years believing that a mother's love could outlast betrayal. Now, I wasn't sure love could outlast silence. Every evening I'd sit by the small radio Clara had given me, its dial glowing soft amber, pretending the voices were company. Outside, winter crept back, coating the world in frost. Somewhere across town, my children slept soundly in my house, under the roof their dead mother had paid for. I wanted to hate them, but hate requires strength. All I had left was disbelief, cold and slow, like water seeping through stone. I started keeping a journal, writing down every memory that might later serve as evidence. Names, dates. The bitter taste of the tea Evelyn made me the night I died. The smell of Thomas's cologne in the hospital corridor. Details became my oxygen. One morning I ventured to the post office to rent a new P.O. box under my false name. That's when I saw her, Lydia Marrow. She was older, but that same honey blonde hair gleamed beneath her hat. She was mailing a thick envelope. The return address read Lewis & Co., Holdings Limited, my late husband's firm. I froze. Lydia was supposed to have disappeared after Robert's death. Why was she back now? And working with my son? I followed her from a distance. She turned down Maple Street and entered a cafe. I waited until she left, then slipped inside and asked the barista about her. "Oh, Miss Marrow? She's in here every Thursday. Real estate agent, I think." Real estate? That word struck like a match. Thomas had once mentioned starting a property business with a silent partner. I guess silence had a name, Lydia. That night I sat at my kitchen table, tracing connections like threads. Lydia sent Thomas money before my death. Then, after my insurance payout, Thomas bought 2 properties under Lewis Marrow Properties, LLC. I checked the registry. Both were under renovation. One was, ironically, next door to my own house on Cedar Lane. I needed proof something undeniable. I called Clara, the nurse who'd helped me vanish, and asked if she could access my medical records. She hesitated, but agreed. When she called back 2 days later, her voice trembled. "Margaret, your official chart ends 2 months before your discharge. After that, the file says deceased. Someone removed the final medical report and replaced it with a forged death certificate. So it was true. My own children had erased me from existence." Clara was frightened. "You should go to the police," she urged. But how could I? What would I say? "Hello, I'm a dead woman, and my children faked it? They'd call me senile." No, I had to make them see me first, alive, breathing, unforgiven. So I planned my haunting. Every evening I walked to Cedar Lane at dusk, wrapped in a gray coat, scarf pulled high. I'd watch the lights flicker inside my old house. Through the curtains I could see Evelyn moving around the kitchen, my kitchen, her figure confident and free of guilt. Thomas came by often. They'd talk late into the night, papers spread across the table. I longed to burst through that door, but I needed the right moment when their world felt most certain, most smug. Then came my chance. I read in the local paper that the family had donated a large sum to the church, the same church where my funeral had been held. The article mentioned a memorial service, honoring the late Margaret Lewis, beloved mother and benefactor. My jaw clenched. They were turning my fake death into a PR event. I decided to attend my own memorial. On the day of the service, I dressed in a long black coat and veil. The mirror almost frightened me. I looked like a ghost already. The church bells rang softly as I slipped into the back pew. The air smelled of lilies and dust. Faces turned, whispering condolences to Evelyn and Thomas at the front row. My children stood before the altar, radiant in grief. Evelyn dabbed her eyes for show. Thomas bowed his head like a martyr. When the pastor spoke my name, my stomach twisted. Beloved mother, gone too soon. I wanted to scream that I was right there, breathing, heart pounding. Instead, I watched, observed, waited. After the service, while the crowd thinned, I approached the guest book. I wrote, in careful cursive, with love, from the one who never truly left. Then I walked out before anyone could see my face. Later that night, I learned from Clara that Evelyn had called the pastor in tears, convinced that someone had desecrated the memorial. She described the handwriting as just like Mom's, good. Let her tremble, let her wonder. But something unexpected happened. 2 nights later, a knock echoed through my apartment door. My heart nearly stopped. When I opened it, a small envelope lay on the floor, no address, no name. Inside was a photograph of me leaving the church. A note on the back read, "Be careful, Margaret. They know you're alive." My hands shook so violently I nearly dropped it. Who took that photo? Who was warning me? The next day, I spotted a man watching me from across the street, tall, gray coat, cap pulled low. He turned away the moment our eyes met. I packed my things that night, terrified. Maybe Thomas had found out. Maybe Lydia. Maybe they'd finished the job they started. Clara arranged a safe house in another town, her cousin's cottage near the lake. Remote, quiet. I left before dawn, carrying only a suitcase and my journals. As the bus rolled past Cedar Lane for the last time, I caught a glimpse of my house, bathed in morning light. For a fleeting second, I thought I saw a figure at the window, Evelyn, staring out, face pale, mouth parted in disbelief. Did she see me? Or did I imagine it? At the lake cottage, time moved differently. The air smelled of pine and wet earth. I tried to find peace there, but ghosts travel light. They fit easily into suitcases. Every night I'd wake gasping, hearing echoes of my children's voices calling me, Mom, sweet, deceitful syllable. A week later, Clara called again, whispering, Someone's been asking questions at the hospital. They said they were from the insurance company. Of course. If they suspected I was alive, the money would be in jeopardy. Maybe that's why the warning came. Maybe Lydia or Thomas wanted to scare me into silence, or eliminate the problem before it ruined them. The next morning, I went for a walk along the lake shore, trying to calm the panic rising inside me. The mist rolled low over the water, soft and white. That's when I noticed footprints, fresh ones leading from the trees to the edge of the dock. A cigarette still burned nearby. Someone had been watching the cottage. I turned to run, but a shadow moved between the pines. And then a voice familiar, trembling, called out softly, Mom? When that voice broke through the fog, my knees nearly gave way. Mom? For a second, I thought the lake itself had spoken, carrying my name on the wind. I turned slowly, heart hammering against my ribs, and saw a figure moving through the mist. The outline was familiar, too familiar. My son, Thomas, I whispered, though my throat had turned to sand. He stepped closer, cautious, eyes darting to the trees as if expecting someone else. His coat was damp, his face pale, his expression not guilt, but fear. "How did you find me?" "I managed." He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached out a trembling hand, as though touching me might make me vanish again. I needed to know if it was true. They said you were alive. I didn't believe it, but then— "Who told you?" I interrupted. He looked over his shoulder before answering. "Evelyn. She saw you near the church that day. She swore she recognized your walk, even under the veil. But when I tried to talk to her about it, she said I was losing my mind." His voice cracked. "She's different now, Mom. She's not who you think she is." A bitter laugh escaped me before I could stop it. "And who do you think she is, Thomas? My loving daughter, or the woman who buried me alive?" He flinched. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that." "You have to believe me. Evelyn said you wanted everything settled, that you were tired of hospitals, tired of pain. She said you wanted peace." "Peace?" I spat the word like poison. So peace meant burning another woman's body and calling it mine? His mouth opened, then shut again. "We didn't know she was real," Evelyn told me. "The body was arranged, that it would look convincing enough for the records. She said it was all legal, that the insurance company required identification for payout. I didn't ask questions, Mom. I swear, I didn't." Tears welled in my eyes, hot and useless. "You didn't ask because the money sounded louder than your conscience." He took a step forward, desperation breaking through his composure. "I wanted to fix everything. After Dad died, the debts, the business, it was collapsing. Evelyn said this was our only way out. I thought she had it all planned with the lawyer, that you knew. But when I found the files she kept hidden—" His voice trailed off. "What files?" I asked sharply. He hesitated, scanning the shadows as if the trees might be listening. "There were letters from someone named Lydia. Payments, photos of you, hospital photos, even the insurance paperwork. And a note that said, 'Make it final this time.' I didn't know what that meant, but now I do." The world tilted for a moment. "You're saying Evelyn planned to kill me, truly kill me after the fake death?" He nodded, shame pulling his shoulders down. "She said if you ever came back, it would ruin everything. Lydia's been helping her hide the trail. They even have someone watching you." "I know," I murmured, thinking of the photograph left at my door. "I can help you, Mom," Thomas said quietly. "I can get the documents, the proof. We can expose her." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that the boy who once brought me daisies from the garden was still somewhere inside this trembling man. But trust is a fragile thing. Once it breaks, it cuts deep. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you, Thomas," I said softly. "But if you truly mean what you say, bring me everything, all of it, then maybe, just maybe, I'll believe you again." He nodded, his eyes glistening. "I will. I promise." He turned to leave, then stopped. "Be careful, Mom. If Evelyn finds out I talked to you, she'll make sure you don't get a second resurrection." When he disappeared into the mist, I stood there for a long time, shaking. The lake was still, but I could feel the storm rising somewhere far off inside me, inside them. That night I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the cottage sounded like footsteps. Every gust of wind carried my daughter's name. I waited for Thomas's call, but it never came. 2 days passed, then 4. On the 5th night, Clara phoned in tears. "Margaret, there's been an accident," she whispered. "A car went off the bridge outside town. It was Thomas's." The phone slipped from my hand. My mind went blank except for one thought. Evelyn found out. I took the first bus back to town, ignoring the cold, ignoring my fear. The bridge was still taped off when I arrived. A police officer told me the car had exploded on impact. The body was unrecognizable. They found only a wallet and burned ID Thomas's. But something didn't feel right. That night, I crept near my old house again. The lights were on, and there in the living room window I saw Evelyn. She was laughing, wine glass in hand. And across from her, in the shadows, sat Lydia Marrow. My son's so-called accident had just paid for their celebration. I walked away before the rage could swallow me, but inside something shifted. I was done being a ghost, done hiding. If Evelyn wanted me dead, she'd soon wish she'd never buried me at all. The night I saw Evelyn laughing in that window was the night something inside me finally snapped. All those months of confusion, fear, heartbreak gone. What replaced them was cold clarity. They had stolen my name, my money, and now my son's life. I wasn't going to hide anymore. I was going to make them see me. But not yet. I had to be smarter than them, colder than they ever imagined I could be. I rented a small room above the old bakery across from the town square. It smelled of yeast and sugar, but all I could taste was vengeance. From that window, I could see Cedar Lane in the distance, my house like a ghost, staring back at me. I bought an old typewriter from a thrift shop and began writing letters, anonymous ones. The first went to the insurance company. It said, "The woman you paid for Margaret Lewis's death isn't dead. She's living quietly under your nose. Check the hospital records and the dental files." The second went to the local newspaper. "Ask why the Lewis family buried a closed casket." The third, my favorite, went to the police. "A dead woman is about to tell you everything. Watch Cedar Lane." After that, I waited. And while I waited, I watched. Evelyn's life looked perfect from the outside. She hosted luncheons, wore my pearls, and smiled like a saint in the grocery store aisles. But when the first article appeared in the town gazette, "Rumors Surround Lewis Insurance Case," her mask started to slip. The smile didn't reach her eyes anymore. She looked over her shoulder more often. Lydia visited her house every night now, sometimes staying until morning. Then, one afternoon, something unexpected happened. I was sitting in the bakery when a man in a dark coat walked in and ordered coffee. He turned slightly, and I saw a familiar scar along his jaw. My heart froze. It was Thomas, alive. He caught my stare and almost dropped his cup. "Mom," he breathed, "we can't talk here." I followed him outside, numb, every thought colliding with the next. "You're supposed to be dead," I whispered. He nodded grimly. Evelyn tried. She cut the brakes on my car. I got out before it hit the river, but everyone thinks I didn't. I've been hiding in a friend's shed near the old sawmill. I stared at him, a strange mix of relief and fury coursing through me. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I couldn't. She has people watching everything, Lydia. Maybe others. I needed time to gather proof. He pulled a flash drive from his pocket and pressed it into my hand. This has everything. Emails, fake, medical documents, even the audio of Evelyn planning your second death. I recorded it from her study. My knees almost gave out. What are we going to do with it? He looked me dead in the eyes. We expose them, but we have to do it the right way. If we just go to the police, they'll cover it up. Lydia has friends in high places. We need the press. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. My son wasn't lost. There was still a piece of the boy I loved inside him, the one who used to run barefoot through the garden, laughing. We spent the next week planning everything down to the hour. Thomas would leak the files to the media anonymously, while I would appear publicly alive, undeniable, unashamed. A resurrection in full daylight. But fate loves irony. On the morning of our reveal, I woke to a pounding on the bakery door. When I opened it, a police officer stood there. "Are you Mrs. Margaret Lewis?" he asked. For a moment I thought he'd come to arrest me for faking my own identity. But then he said, "I'm sorry, ma'am. There's been a fire at the Lewis residence." My heart stopped. When I reached Cedar Lane, the world tilted again. The house that once smelled of cinnamon and laughter was now a skeleton of black wood and smoke. Fire trucks surrounded it, and neighbors stood whispering behind the tape. Evelyn's car was still in the driveway. I searched for Thomas in the crowd, but he wasn't there. Panic clawed at my chest. A firefighter stopped me at the gate. "You can't go in there, ma'am." "My daughter," I choked out. "She's inside." He looked at me strangely, as though seeing a ghost. "Ma'am, they told us the homeowner, Margaret Lewis, was already deceased." "I'm right here," I hissed, pushing past him. The smell of ash and gasoline filled my lungs. The walls were gone. The staircase collapsed. And there, near what used to be the study, they found a body burned beyond recognition. The coroner said it was female. Everyone assumed it was Evelyn. But I knew my daughter too well. She'd never stay in a burning house. She'd light the match herself and walk away smiling. That night, I checked the flash drive Thomas had given me, desperate for his voice, his face, something. But the files were gone, erased. Only one remained, a short video clip, dark and shaky. I pressed play. It showed Thomas sitting in his car, recording on his phone. "If you're watching this, Mom," he said softly, "it means she found out. Evelyn isn't Evelyn anymore. She's working with Lydia for something bigger, something tied to Dad's old company. The insurance was just part of it. Don't trust anyone. And if I don't make it, remember, I tried." The video ended. I sat in silence, the air around me thick with ghosts. The fire had burned more than just my house. It had burned whatever hope I had left. Still, I wasn't done. If Evelyn wanted to vanish again, I would drag her out of whatever shadow she hid in, even if it was the last thing I ever did. So, at dawn, I packed a small bag and left Cedar Lane for good. I didn't know where I was going yet, but I knew the scent of smoke would guide me. Somewhere out there, my daughter was alive, wearing another face, building another lie. And I, the mother she buried twice, was coming to find her. The smoke had barely left my clothes when I arrived in the next town over, a sleepy coastal place called Harrington Bay. It was quiet, too quiet, the kind of town where faces blur into fog and people don't ask questions, perfect for someone trying to disappear. Or reappear. It didn't take long to find her trail. Evelyn was always careless when she thought no one could catch her. A month before the fire, she'd opened a business under a new name, Elena Foster Real Estate Holdings. I recognized the surname immediately. Foster was her married name before her husband Daniel died in that accidental gas leak. The same year our insurance was updated. Everywhere I went, I felt eyes on me, at the diner, at the post office, at the tiny grocery store where the cashier smiled too long. I began to wonder if Evelyn already knew I'd survived again. Still, I couldn't stop. I spent days combing through records, tracing bank accounts, addresses, company names. Each one led me closer to her. Finally, I found a listing for a beachside cottage recently purchased by Elena Foster. The payment came from a joint account belonging to her and Lydia Marrow. There it was, my daughter and the woman who'd loved my husband. Partners. The drive to the cottage felt like slipping into another life. The road wound through pine trees until it opened to the sea, and there, perched on the cliff, stood the house. White shutters, blue trim, wind chimes that sang like glass ghosts. I parked down the road and walked the rest of the way. My pulse beat in my throat with every step. Through the window, I saw movement, 2 women laughing over wine. Evelyn's laugh, and Lydia, older now, but her beauty sharp as ever. I watched them toast to something, their glasses clinking. That sound burned through me more than any fire ever could. I should have turned away. I should have called the police. But years of silence and betrayal had hardened something in me, so I knocked. Evelyn opened the door, wine still in her hand. For a long moment, she just stared, lips parted, color draining from her face. Then she whispered, "You're supposed to be dead." I smiled faintly. "You should know better than anyone, Evelyn. I don't die easily." Behind her, Lydia's glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. "Margaret," she breathed, stepping back, "you shouldn't be here." "Oh, I think I should," I said, stepping inside. The salt wind followed me, cold and sharp. "You both owe me quite a few explanations." Evelyn found her voice again. "You have no proof of anything. You're just a crazy old woman who wandered away from the grave." I held up the flash drive. "This says otherwise." Her composure cracked for the briefest second. Then she laughed, a sound like breaking porcelain. "That little recording? You think that saves you? You think anyone will believe a ghost over me?" "I don't need them to believe," I said quietly. "I just need you to know I'm not afraid anymore. Lydia stepped forward, her eyes glassy with something between guilt and fear. "Margaret, please, none of this was supposed to happen. Robert's company. It wasn't just insurance. There were investors, foreign accounts, black money. When he died, the board wanted it gone, buried. Evelyn helped protect what was left." "By burying me?" I snapped. Evelyn's voice hardened. "You were never supposed to wake up from that fall, Mother. You were supposed to rest. You and your perfect little house and your perfect name. You don't understand what Dad left behind. We were cleaning up his mess." I stared at her, disbelief turning to horror. "You mean his affair with Lydia?" Lydia flinched, but Evelyn didn't deny it. Dad made promises to her, promises he couldn't keep, and when he died, those promises became debts. She came to us desperate. The money from your insurance wasn't for greed, it was to pay off what he owed, to protect our family from the people who wanted more than money. I felt my stomach turn. "So, you stole my life to fix his lies." Evelyn's eyes flickered with something I hadn't seen in her for years. Remorse, maybe, but it was fleeting. "You were already halfway gone, Mother. I just finished the story." For a moment, none of us spoke. The sea roared outside, a low growl against the cliffs. Then, from somewhere deep in the house, came a sound metal scraping wood. Evelyn turned pale. "Lydia, did you lock the back door?" Before Lydia could answer, the kitchen door burst open. Two men stepped inside, dark coats, hard eyes. One of them held a gun. "Enough," the taller one said. "Where's the rest of it?" Lydia's voice trembled. "You weren't supposed to come here." The man struck her across the face. She fell, wine pooling beneath her cheek. Evelyn screamed. I froze, every instinct screaming to run, but the man's gun swung toward me. "Who's this?" "No one," Evelyn said quickly. Just my mother. She's confused." He smirked. "Dead mother's walking. That's a new one." He turned back to Lydia. "The money, now." She pointed weakly toward the study. "It's in the safe behind the painting." He shoved her aside and went to retrieve it. Evelyn edged closer to me, whispering frantically, "You have to leave." "Now. They'll kill you too." "But I didn't move." "You made this bed," I said softly. "Now you lie in it." Before she could answer, a gunshot shattered the room. Lydia screamed. The man by the safe had fired at his partner. The second man collapsed instantly. Evelyn bolted for the door. I followed on instinct. We stumbled onto the cliffside terrace, the wind whipping our hair, the sea roaring below. The surviving man stepped out behind us, gun raised again. "End of the line," he said. Evelyn grabbed my arm, pulling me between them. "Don't shoot, she's worthless to you." That was the last line she ever spoke to me, because at that exact moment, Lydia, bleeding but still conscious, appeared behind him with the fireplace poker. One swift blow, and the man toppled over the railing, disappearing into the waves below. For a long moment, the only sound was the wind. Then Evelyn turned to me, eyes wide, chest heaving. "You think this changes anything?" she hissed. "You'll always be the weak one, Mother." I slapped her. The sound echoed through the night. "You call it weakness," I said, my voice shaking. But it's what makes me human." She stumbled back too far. Her heel caught the edge of the broken railing. Her hand reached out, grasping for something, anything, "Mom," and then she was gone. Her scream vanished into the crash of the sea. Lydia collapsed to the floor, sobbing. I stood there, trembling, staring into the dark water that had swallowed my daughter whole. And for the first time in my life, I didn't know whether to mourn or finally breathe. When the sea swallowed my daughter, it took the last piece of my old life with it. I stood there for a long time, wind howling through the broken railing, the salt stinging my face like punishment. I don't know how long I stayed there, minutes, hours. The waves crashed and crashed, as if trying to wash the world clean, but nothing could wash away what had been done. Lydia's sobs echoed faintly behind me. She was going to ruin everything, she kept whispering, her voice trembling. "Everything Robert built." I turned slowly. "Robert built lies," I said, "and you helped him build them higher." She lifted her face, blood-streaked, mascara melted. "You don't understand, Margaret. He promised me security. After his death, they came for me. The investors, the ones he defrauded. They threatened to destroy you, too. Evelyn thought if we buried the truth with your name, we'd all survive." I stared at her, numb. "Survive? Look around you, Lydia. Everyone's dead or broken. What exactly did we survive?" Her lips parted as if to speak, but she said nothing. Just sat there amid the shattered glass, shaking. I didn't help her. I couldn't. There was nothing left to say. By dawn, the police had swarmed the cliffside. A fisherman had seen the fire from miles out. They questioned me for hours who I was, what I was doing there, how the body had gone over the edge. At first, they didn't believe me. How could they? The deceased Margaret Lewis was standing before them, alive, wearing a borrowed coat and shaking with rage. I told them everything, every last poisonous detail. The forged records, the insurance scam, the fake burial, the money, the threats. They didn't know what to do with me. A detective named Harlan took my statement twice, his eyes soft with disbelief. "Mrs. Lewis," he said quietly, "this story sounds impossible." I handed him the flash drive. So did my death. It took weeks for everything to unravel. The investigation made headlines. Dead woman returns insurance fraud and murder exposed. Reporters camped outside the hospital where they treated me for shock. My picture was everywhere, again, gray hair, tired eyes, a ghost wearing flesh. Lydia cooperated, but only after she realized her secrets couldn't save her anymore. She confessed to aiding in the fraud, to helping Evelyn forge my death certificate, to orchestrating Thomas's attempted murder. She claimed she never wanted him dead, only silenced. She said Evelyn had changed, that the greed had consumed her. They never found Evelyn's body. The sea keeps what it wants. Sometimes I imagine she's out there still, clinging to some jagged rock, hating me for surviving. Other nights, I picture her face beneath the waves, peaceful at last. Thomas survived too, though not without scars. The explosion that should have killed him had left him with burns across his back and a limp in his right leg. When he saw me again, we didn't speak at first. We just sat together in silence, two people stitched together by grief. He finally said, "I don't deserve forgiveness, I looked at him, my heart aching with a kind of tired love. Maybe not, but forgiveness isn't for you, Thomas. It's for me. I've carried too many ghosts already, he cried then, the kind of deep, broken crying that only comes when a person realizes what's truly gone. I held him, though my arms felt hollow. Months passed. Trials came and went. Lydia went to prison. The insurance company clawed back every cent. The world moved on, as it always does. But I couldn't. Not really. I sold what was left of my house, just ashes and memories, and moved back to the lake cottage where this nightmare began. It was quiet there, almost cruelly so. Sometimes, when the mist rolled over the water, I'd swear I could still hear Evelyn's voice calling through it. Mom, one evening, as the sun dipped low, I found myself standing on the dock again, the same place I'd first heard her voice in the mist months ago. The water shimmered gold and red, and I thought about everything that had happened. My family had turned me into a ghost, but they'd forgotten one truth. Ghosts don't die. They linger. They remember. I took out the last thing I had left, a small velvet box Thomas had given me after the trial. Inside was a locket, blackened by smoke but still intact. It had been found among the debris of the burned house. Inside, on one side, was a picture of me and Robert, young and smiling. On the other, a small photo of Evelyn as a child, missing her front teeth. I ran my thumb over her face, tears spilling silently. "I failed you somewhere, didn't I?" I whispered to the wind. "You were born into love, but you grew up in lies. Maybe I should have seen it sooner. Maybe that's my punishment to outlive you all." The wind carried no answer, only the soft lap of waves against the dock. I closed the locket and dropped it into the water. It sank slowly, catching the light one last time before disappearing beneath the surface. For the first time in years, I felt something like peace. Not joy, never that, but peace, thin and quiet, the kind you only earn when you've walked through every circle of betrayal and come out breathing. Sometimes the townspeople visit the lake and talk about the old woman who lives by herself, the one who came back from the dead. They ask me about it in hushed voices. I just smile and say, "I didn't come back from the dead. I just refuse to stay buried." At night, I still light a candle by the window, the flames small but steady. I imagine Thomas somewhere safe, rebuilding a life from the ruins. And I imagine Evelyn, too, not as the woman she became, but as the little girl who once hugged me tight and said, "I love you more than the moon, Mama." That's the version I choose to keep, the one untouched by greed or fire, the one who existed before the lies. Because if I've learned anything, it's that love, real love, doesn't die when people do. It lingers, like the echo of a heartbeat, reminding you that even after betrayal, even after death, you're still alive. And so I keep living. Every morning, I open the window, breathe in the lake air, and whisper to the ghosts who tried to erase me, "I'm still here."